are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, April 22nd. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. And that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about a couple of quarterbacks that we've talked about in the past, over the past couple of weeks. Mainly Dak Prescott. I know I did a Trevor Lawrence segment not too long ago as well, but we'll talk about them, some recent things regarding their contracts and some things that they had to say, or at least Dak Prescott had to say on his future and his openness to playing elsewhere after 2024 if him and the Cowboys can't agree on a long-term deal. So we'll get into all that in just a second. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about a pair of running backs that went to new teams this offseason. We'll talk about Derrick Henry and him wanting to win a Super Bowl with the Ravens in 2024, as well as talking about the Texans and their comments on getting Joe Mixon and hoping that Joe Mixon can be someone that sticks around for many years to come in Houston. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about another team that I've talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks, and that's the New York Jets. A couple of things with them regarding Zach Wilson and what the current situation is with him, as well as what the Jets are going to do with their first pick, because there's a few things that they could do. So we'll get into that, because the draft is this week, believe it or not. So we'll talk about that. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about Marquise Brown and now his importance in the Chiefs bringing him in. So we'll get into all that. And we'll start off the show by getting into talking about these two quarterbacks here in Dak Prescott and Trevor Lawrence. And again, Dak Prescott is someone that I've been talking about a lot. Other shows here on the GSMC Sports Network I've been talking about a lot in this situation because, again, it's kind of a big deal. Whether you like the Cowboys or not, they're going to make headlines. And this is one of the storylines going into the 2024 season. And once the season's over, we'll see if Dak Prescott gets his money. But he did have some interesting things to say regarding the whole situation in Dallas. So I wanted to touch upon what exactly he said. And this is what he had to say recently. I'm not going to say I fear being here or not. I don't fear either situation, to be candid with you. So that's, again, his openness to possibly playing somewhere else in 2024. He said, I love this game and love to play and love to better myself as a player and my teammates around me. Right now, it's with the Dallas Cowboys. It's where I want to be, and that's where I am, and that's the focus. And after the season, we'll see where we're at, and if the future holds that, and if not, we'll go from there. So that's what he had to say regarding whether he could stay in Dallas or he can end up playing elsewhere. So it is a big deal. And this is some other things he had to say. However, or honestly, I'm focused on the moment, on the now. If the talks begin and real talks get to happen, sure, we can talk about getting that done. But in this case right now, I'm worried about getting better, being better than I am at this moment. So leaving that up to my agent and Jerry at this point. So again, that just Has to do with more on the contract negotiations. He's focused on this upcoming season, which is kind of something similar to what Trevor Lawrence had to say as well regarding his contract situation. So, again, keep an eye on it. And Dak Prescott, his cap hit is about $55 million in 2024. And even if he does go to free agency, his cap hit will still account for $40 million. So we'll see if a long-term extension is reached. And on top of that, you got CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons who are going to be looking for long-term contracts as well. There's a possibility that CeeDee Lamb could even hold out for the season, so he could be looking to get a jump start on the other two guys and get his deal first. So that remains to be seen. But I know I said that Dak Prescott could be the odd man out when it comes to their top guys looking to get paid. And who knows? I mean, again, he also did say in the articles that I was looking at that he doesn't necessarily have to be, he said it, he doesn't necessarily have to be the highest paid quarterback. And I guess that's good for Dallas because, again, we heard that number of $60 million, and Dak Prescott is not a $60 million quarterback. He's not. Again, he's probably a top 10 quarterback, but not top 5. And you give top 5 quarterbacks that kind of money. I'm not giving Dak Prescott that money. But at the same time, you also have his contract situation where even if he does hit free agency, he's going to create an enormous cap hit on the Cowboys. So we'll see, if they end up giving him the money that, he wants, but could end up being elsewhere, and he's open to it. But I guess that kind of helps the Cowboys in negotiations when Dak comes out and says, I don't necessarily have to be the highest paid quarterback, because that kind of gives the Cowboys a little bit of leverage on, okay, well, this is the price tag we're going to give you then. And we'll see if they can negotiate it out and he comes back. But again, he has an openness to, possibly be playing elsewhere. And another team will definitely give him a big contract, because you see teams and how desperate some teams can be. They can end up giving him whatever he wants because they just need a quarterback. And there's teams looking to draft guys this week. But after 2024, there's definitely going to be spots that open up where they could use a starting quarterback. I mean, you kind of have an idea of who's going to be taking the top guys. Then going into next year, going into 2025, again, like I said, spots could open up, and Dak Prescott can maybe be on the move and go elsewhere. One team I think about is the Broncos. I'm curious to see what they're going to do. Because you kind of know what, again, the Bears are doing, the Commanders are doing. The Patriots, I mean, they're locked in at number 3. They should be taking a quarterback. The Vikings are probably, I saw something last night, Vikings could be looking to get into the top 10. So you figure they're going to take somebody. Then you got, like I said, then you got the Broncos. You also have the Raiders that could be in on a quarterback as well. I'm curious to see what the Broncos do. Especially after letting go of Russell Wilson. So, again, our questions will be answered on Thursday and beyond that. So, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But that's a team that needs a quarterback. So we'll see what ends up happening with Dak Prescott and his contract negotiations. But again, the Broncos, that's a team that could use a quarterback. But again, you got Russell Wilson's dead cap. So I don't know. Maybe that's a possible destination. So another quarterback here. Let's get into that. Maybe the Broncos aren't the best spot for Dak because of money constraints. But I don't know. That's just one team I was thinking of. Now, let's talk about Trevor Lawrence and the updates on him. So, Trent Baalke, the general manager, had some comments on Trevor Lawrence's contract. He said, we've had some great talks and great conversations. I spoke with his agency again last night. We're working, but you can't force this stuff. I said the same thing with Josh's situation. I said it would take some time, and it did, but we're glad it got completed when it did, so we could go into the offseason program knowing that's behind us and we can move forward. We're working at it. We'll continue to work at it. Ownership is involved, obviously. Coach is involved. We're going to put our best foot forward and hope to get something accomplished there. So we'll see. Again, I mean, it seems like they really are going to give Trevor Lawrence a contract extension. The other thing, too, is they're going to be looking to address the wide receiver position, or at least, address trying to get another playmaker for Trevor Lawrence in this offense. Because, again, I talked about this last week. The receivers aren't bad, but it's definitely lacking when it comes to a number one wide receiver. Now, you lost Calvin Ridley, and the season before that, Christian Kirk actually had a good season after they gave him a big contract, which myself and one of my friends, we weren't like, I mean, good for him that he got paid, but it was like, I mean, really for Christian Kirk? But Christian Kirk played really well. So I don't think the receiving core is bad. And they added Gabe Davis to replace Calvin Ridley. And, Gabe Davis didn't have his best season. I mean, people thought, including myself, we thought Gabe Davis was going to be the next big thing after the playoff performance he had against the Chiefs. And then he just never really lived up to that. Now, I don't think Gabe Davis is a bad wide receiver, but I think he's definitely a little bit of a downgrade from Calvin Ridley. But, you got him, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. You also have, Evan Ingram, who has played really well since he came over from the Giants. And then you have Travis Etienne. But they're missing something. And losing Ridley, I think, is going to hurt. Again, Ridley was inconsistent throughout the year. Did finish with over 1,000 yards, despite basically missing 2 years. But they're missing something on this offense. And they could be addressing the position through the draft. And we'll see what they end up doing with their first pick. But it seems like they are committed to Trevor Lawrence. So, and I think people still have their questions when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. They did take a little bit of a step back. Well, I mean, the collapse was bad. Jaguars did take a step back last year. And I think Trevor Lawrence wants to go out there and play more like he did in 2022. And, when the Jags were off to an 8-3 start, you want to see that Trevor Lawrence. But again, a lot of their collapse had to do with him getting hurt. So they got to make sure that they keep him upright, make sure he's healthy. You bring in Mitch Morse over from the Bills when the Bills released him. So that's something else that they're probably going to address in this draft, I would imagine, is, getting some offensive linemen as well. So I think that's what they're going to work on is, shoring up the offensive line, maybe adding another playmaker. Because, again, you look at the defensive line for this team. Again, you got to like it. You got Walker, Armstead, and they just signed Josh Allen to a big contract. So you like the, the defensive line. So, I mean, they're going to add some defensive players, you would imagine, as well. But I think really their priority is surrounding Trevor Lawrence with the best talent with this draft. So if they're going to shore up the offensive line, again, bring in another playmaker, that's probably what they're going to end up doing, at least with the first couple of picks, I would imagine. But it seems like the negotiations with Trevor Lawrence, they're moving more so than what's going on with Dak Prescott. So we'll see. I mean, both guys are going to end up getting paid, but it's possible Dak Prescott could be getting paid by a new team. So keep an eye on it, but that's really my thoughts on both of these guys. Let me know what you guys think about both of these quarterbacks. How do you see them performing in 2024? Let me know in the comments. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we're going to talk about a couple of running backs. Two running backs that ended up switching teams this offseason. One by a trade, one via free agency. So we'll talk about Derrick Henry and his comments about getting to a Super Bowl and winning one with the Ravens, as well as the Texans talking about Joe Mixon and what his acquisition means to the team. So, with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about a couple of running backs that switched teams this offseason. We'll talk about Derrick Henry, his recent comments, trying to get to a Super Bowl and winning it with the Ravens, as well as the Texans, and them talking highly of Joe Mixon. So, Derrick Henry recently said he wants to put in the work to be able to hold up a trophy at the end of the year for the Ravens. This is what he said. I really want to hold that trophy up at the end of the year, but it starts right now, putting the work in. It's been fun getting to know everybody, putting the work in, something I love to do. I'm the new guy on the block. I wanted to make sure that I show up, show my teammates and this organization that I'm here. I'm committed. Lamar's a cool guy. You could tell he's a great leader and how everybody flocks to him. He has great energy as well. I've only been around for a little bit, but he seems like a great guy. His body of work speaks for itself. And yeah, I mean, listen, I loved this move for the Ravens. And I think he's going to play really well. He's in the right spot. And again, he's at that age where, running backs, start to decline. And maybe you saw a little bit of that last season with some of the games. But again, the Titans weren't very good. Now he steps into a better situation with the Ravens, a team that loves to run the football. And I think Derrick Henry is still going to show you that he's got some mileage left on him. And I expect him to go out there and play really well for the Ravens. And the other thing, too, is if they make it back to a championship game, you would think that the Ravens are going to run the ball more than they did, which was, right, wasn't it 6 times? Yeah. When you got Derrick Henry, you got to run the ball more than 6 times. So maybe 7, right? That's not bad. Yeah, I mean, listen, his aspiration, he's got Super Bowl aspirations. And the Ravens, are they a team that could definitely make it to the Super Bowl? Or can make it to a Super Bowl? Yeah. The problem is, like everybody else is going to have that same problem, you got the Kansas City Chiefs standing in your way. And they're a team that has had a problem beating the Chiefs, as well as many others. They're not the only ones. How many times have we talked about the Bills and their problems beating the Chiefs in the playoffs? But they're a team that could definitely do it. And I think one of the big things is, and it's something I always talk about, is health. And the Ravens, for the most part last year, were healthy. Lamar Jackson was healthy. I mean, the last couple of seasons, Lamar Jackson has, gotten hurt. They had to play the Bengals in the playoff game the year before with Tyler Huntley as their quarterback. And actually, they almost won that game. J.K. Dobbins, he runs that touchdown in. Instead of it getting batted out and, Sam Hubbard picks it up and runs it back for, a touchdown. That's 7 points going the other way. If the Ravens score, I mean, who knows? Maybe they pull off the upset. But with Lamar Jackson healthy, he went out there. He had a solid year, wins MVP. And the Ravens, they were the 1 seed. The defense played really well, too. That was a strength of the team. I mean, they did only lose to the Chiefs 17-10. I mean, it was a defensive game. You know, the Ravens really hurt themselves with fumbles and Lamar Jackson throwing an interception basically into triple coverage. Isaiah Likely's holding his hand up, throw me the ball, and Lamar throws a pick six, an interception. It just, well, he threw a pick trying to get 6. There you go. That's what I was trying to say. But it's just they had a chance, and they ended up losing. And now, does Derrick Henry get them over that hump? We'll see. Again, there is some risk with him because, again, he's 30 years old, and he's had to deal with some injuries. But this could definitely be a slam dunk. And when you got him and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield, that read option is going to be a nightmare for teams because Lamar Jackson could take off and run with it for a big game. And then you got Derrick Henry, who could take it right up the middle, and he could take it to the house. So that's one tandem that I'm really looking forward to watch in 2024, and how they're able to feed off of each other. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I did a segment earlier, or from like a month ago or so, John Harbaugh's excitement over getting Derrick Henry, and him talking about how this guy tormented them in the playoffs. And in regular season games as well. I mean, you had the playoff game when they were the 1 seed, back Lamar Jackson's first MVP. Derrick Henry tormented them. Threw a touchdown pass in that game too. And then you had the following season, he had that game winner in overtime. Derrick Henry's had some big games against them. He also played well against them when they played overseas. But now they have him on their team, and they're very happy about that. And again, like I said, I'm looking forward to see how he is in this offense. And the other thing too is how the Ravens are going to approach this draft, because I think, again, they're another team that I would see them drafting a receiver. Right? They could probably use another one. I like their tight ends. Zay Flowers got himself into trouble this offseason, but it seems like that was resolved. So, but I could definitely see them maybe adding another receiver in the draft. Maybe. But we'll see. We'll see. So, but again, having Derrick Henry on this team, it's really going to help them out. And again, looking forward to, see what him and Lamar Jackson can do together. So the other running back that I wanted to touch upon too is Joe Mixon, because there was an article, of the Texans talking about Mixon, the general manager for the Texans, talking about Mixon. And this is what the general manager of the Texans had to say. So he talked about the acquisition. He said Joe was set to be released. This is from Nick Caserio. I hope that's how I pronounce it. Or Caserio. Joe was set to be released. He was a player that we evaluated and we thought could help our team in some capacity. So the earlier question you get on the phone, talk to the team, hey, we'd be interested. Would you guys be willing to give up a pick? Or if we gave up a pick, would you be interested? That's kind of how the trade was created, just relative to the commitment we made to Joe. Joe has been a productive player, pretty consistent player, and we think he can help our team. We're glad he's here, hopefully for a few more years. That's how that all sort of came together. And, this comes off of, also in the article, Devin Singletary, going to the Giants. That's kind of what opened the door for them to go after Mixon. And, I'm interested, interested to see how he does now in Houston. I mean, I think that's a good spot for him. The Bengals, there was a lot of, speculation on whether they were going to keep him. or, cut him. I mean, it looked like that was going to be the case, but then the Texans came in and said, hey, we'll trade for him. And that's what they ended up doing. Because now the Bengals, they brought in Zach Moss, and, after his good 2023, and they also had Chase Brown, who was making plays towards the end of the year, one of their rookies. So that's what they're going to roll with in 2024, unless, they draft somebody else, which is a possibility. But Joe Mixon in Houston, and Mixon, was decent in 2023. And again, this is a good spot for him in Houston. I mean, the Texans, they're going to be a team that's going to be throwing the ball a lot more than running it. And Singletary had a good year for them last year. And Mixon, he finished with over 1,000 yards. He had 9 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's coming off of a solid year. And, the Texans are taking a chance on him. I mean, they got, they added him. The bigger acquisition this offseason was getting Diggs. So, again, this is another team here. Really looking forward to see what they can do in 2024 as well. C.J. Stroud in year 2 as well. I mean, I don't expect Joe Mixon to, I think when comparing the two running backs here, and Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon, I think Derrick Henry's going to have the better year. But I think that's also because the Ravens are going to be running the ball. But I don't expect Joe Mixon to have, be fantastic. I mean, he could probably get to 1,000 yards, close to that. But, again, he's another running back that's getting up there in age for a running back. So, he's on the downside. But, again, new destination with a good team. I mean, I think he'll be all right for them. And also the other thing, too, is, Dameon Pierce, who he had a good rookie season. Last year, disappointment. They ended up putting him on special teams. So he really fell off. Now, he's still with them. And, he might get some opportunities. But he's going to have to earn it. Unless the Texans, let him go. But, he was someone that was, he made plays his rookie season. He seemed like he was going to be the guy. And then they brought in Devin Singletary. Well, the other thing, too, is you had D'Amico Ryans coming in. A whole new regime. So that also played a role in it, too. But he really just got phased out. Because, he wasn't playing well. Devin Singletary was. And Devin Singletary got more of an opportunity. So, Dameon Pierce, he's going to have to try to earn it back. But Joe Mixon is the lead guy. And, again, I think it was a good move for the Texans because, they lost Singletary, so they looked for a replacement. They got Joe Mixon, who was most likely on his way out in Cincinnati. And let's see what he does in Houston. Again, good spot for him. But again, with a team that is going to be more of a passing team, which, again, when you got the weapons that they have and the quarterback that they have, I mean, that's what you expect. But I don't think, Mixon's not going to, when you have the pass catchers that they have, that definitely takes pressure off of him. So, again, we'll see. Let me know what you guys think, though, about both of these running backs here with Derrick Henry. What do you think? How far do you think the Ravens can go in 2024? And Joe Mixon, what do you expect him to do in Houston? And do you expect him to be there long term? Because again, they say they want him to be there for many years, but again, he's approaching that age where he's going to be on the downside, and I don't know how long it's going to work out in Houston, but again, we'll see. So, but before we go into our next break, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we're going to talk about the Jets, a couple things with them regarding Zach Wilson, as well as what are they going to do with their first pick in the NFL draft, which is coming up on Thursday. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about a couple things regarding the Jets, Zach Wilson, as well as what are they going to do in the draft. Well, especially with their, more specifically into their first pick, what they're going to do. So, a couple of things. So Joe Douglas talked about Zach Wilson, the general manager for the Jets. So I just wanted to go over what he had to say. He said, I know you guys talked to Woody Johnson about Zach, and my thoughts are in line with Woody, that Zach is an asset, the Jets general manager said Friday. At that same time, we're obviously open to trading Zach. There have been discussions. Nothing's really changed since we've talked in Florida. We're open to trading him. There's just no news to report on that. And they really weren't getting any offers for him. But, we'll see. But right now, he's still a Jet. He also said the most important position in sports, this is about the quarterback. For us, it's funny. I was going back and looking just through some drafts, the way that teams handled the quarterback position. I went back and looked at how the Packers in the 90s, you draft a guy like Mark Brunell in the 5th round, and then you draft Matt Hasselbeck in the 6th round, and you develop. They were a quarterback farm when Brett Favre was there, Aaron Brooks. Then they drafted Aaron Rodgers in the 1st round, but I would love to be a quarterback factory, and they have been anything but a quarterback factory, that's for sure. But again, Zach Wilson is still a Jet, and I also wanted to. So I think I also have here what Woody Johnson had to say about Zach Wilson as well. I think there's a quote that I have from him. So he said, from his standpoint, it's probably better if he changes faces and gets a new place, and he can wipe the slate clean. I think that would be better for him. Zach is and he also said Zach is a valuable asset. I said it would be better for him. No, we're not just going to release him. So they're not going to release him. But I feel like at some point, you're going to have to make a decision, because you can't go into next season with him on the team. You just can't. You just cannot do that, because it's just going to be. They already have distractions on the team with things that have gone on, but whether it's Robert Saleh and him trying to figure out who leaked out certain information, and of course Aaron Rodgers and some stuff that he's been making news over. The Jets make the news for the wrong reasons at times, and Zach Wilson is going to create a distraction if you have him on this team going into next year. He cannot be on this team. He has to go. You got to get rid of him somehow. If he ends up being on this team and being that number 3 quarterback, I don't know what to say. It would be comical. That's really what it would be. If he somehow is on this team in 2024 after everything that's happened. And I just think it's funny how, Joe Douglas talks about, being hopefully being a quarterback factory. Yeah, you have not been that. Because last year, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, and you have Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, and Tim Boyle. Those are the quarterbacks that you had to use when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And you look at some of the other teams and with the quarterbacks that got hurt for them, and some of these backup quarterbacks played well. The Jets, that was not the case for them. Because you had guys like Jake Browning step up. I know he didn't play well towards the end there, but Josh Dobbs also was playing well at certain points during the year. Now they brought in Tyrod Taylor, and he's got his injury issue. So, again, if Zach Wilson is the third quarterback, and then Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, and Tyrod Taylor is your first line of defense, and then he gets hurt, and then you got to put in Zach Wilson. I mean, there's a possibility that could happen. But he can, because Jet fans are going to lose their minds. He cannot be on this team. But you had quarterbacks backup quarterbacks that played well. Look at Joe Flacco. He stepped in for a few games and played well for the Browns. It got them to the playoffs. And Joe Flacco was on the Jets. And look at how he played with the Jets. Wasn't very good. They had that miraculous comeback win against the Browns a couple of years ago. But other than that, Joe Flacco was not good with the Jets. He was good with the Browns. You know why? Because the Browns were a better situation for him. The Jets just has not panned out. Quarterback has been a problem for them for years. Can't seem to get it right. But it would be comical if Zach Wilson somehow is on this team in 2024. He cannot be on this team. Can't. But they talk about him being an asset. Well, what kind of asset is he? I mean, maybe you get a 7th round pick for him. I mean, right now it doesn't seem like they're getting anything. Again, apologize for my dog barking in the background. She started barking as I was about to come back from break, and I was hoping it would stop, but it has not. I don't know. It's probably barking at the mailman or something. It's just, again, this is something that happens, with me sneezing or holding back a sneeze or her barking. It's like almost a guarantee. So if you want to bet on the show, that's a couple of things that you definitely can win some money from, is my dog barking or me trying to hold back a sneeze, which hasn't happened yet, but just wanted to mention that. But like I said, they talk about Zach Wilson being an asset. Not really an asset. No offense to him, but he's a deficit. Because he should not be anywhere near the football field for the Jets in 2024. He shouldn't. He did not play well. He had that one good game against the Texans last year, but other than that, it was a tough watch. Oh, well, also against the Chiefs, too, which I was in attendance for. But they lost that game. Just was not good. And again, is it all of his fault? No. He was not coached the right way. If he ended up in a better situation, he'd be a different player. But he's with the Jets, and this is what they got. This is what they got. And it just has not worked out. So he needs to go somewhere else. But if they don't want to release him, well, it doesn't seem like teams are. I mean, there were some rumors that, teams could be, interested in trading him, but they're not going to give up a lot to get him. I think teams now might be just playing the waiting game and just hoping that they release him. But the Jets don't want to release him. So he might just be stuck there. And then we might be dealing with the same thing that we dealt with in 2023 in 2024, which I hope not, but it could be a possibility. But, I mean, maybe it's something that happens after the draft. I don't know, but yeah, it's just Zach Wilson needs to go somewhere else. But right now, that's not happening. The Jets want to trade him. I think they want to do right by him and at least trade him rather than just flat out release him and then nobody picks him up. But again, like I said, teams are not lining up to get him. So they could say he's an asset, but not really is an asset. So now the other thing I want to talk about is what are the Jets going to do in the draft? So Rick Cimini of ESPN, he's reporting that the Jets may have other targets in mind when it comes to the draft. It seems like they could go with, if they're available, one of the top receivers. At least one of the guys might be available, whether it's Marvin Harrison Jr., who's probably going to be taken before them. Malik Neighbors probably going to be taken before them. So it might be Rome Odunze that ends up with the Jets. Now, the other possibility, too, is they like Brock Bowers, so they could go after him. I know some of the conversations that I've had with coworkers, friends that are Jet fans, I know at least with one of the conversations I was having, they like Tyler Conklin and that they should stick with him. He be the top tight end. They don't get Brock Bowers because offensive line is more important. Because although I like what the Jets have done this offseason, you got Tyron Smith, who has an injury history, and he could definitely get hurt again. So you might want to draft an offensive lineman with your first pick just for depth, just in case one of these guys does go down and gets hurt. Because Aaron Rodgers is the present. And the Jets, on paper, the team is good. But it's only going to work if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. If he's not healthy, if he ends up getting hurt again, then this season, again, just like last year, is going to be a waste. So they really have to prioritize making sure that he stays upright and that he's healthy. We're seeing videos of him throwing to Garrett Wilson and to Breece Hall, and it's great to see. And I hope he goes out there and he lights it up. And he reminds people that he is still that guy. Like I said, I'm gonna go into 2024, be a part of the minority that Aaron Rodgers is gonna go out there and have a great season. Despite him coming off of this Achilles injury and being 40 years old, Aaron Rodgers is gonna go out there and have a good season and remind everybody who he is. And if he doesn't, then I will be the first person to admit that. They got to make sure that they protect him. And again, they got 3 offensive linemen. They traded for one. They signed a couple. I mean, they could draft one with, their second or third pick, someone they really like. Maybe they trade up for some. It's just there's a lot of possibilities. We're going to see a lot of trades in the draft. We're definitely going to see that because you got teams that are looking to trade up. You got teams that are open to trading down. There's going to be some trades on Thursday. You're going to see that. But when it comes to the Jets, I mean, the splashier move is getting a playmaker. Whether it's Brock Bowers, whether it is one of the top receivers. But what would probably be the smarter move? Probably drafting another offensive lineman. I mean, because if you look at the Jets' weapons right now, you got Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams. You have Tyler Conklin, like I said. I mean, Allen Lazard is still there, right? You also have Xavier Gibson, who ran back that punt return week 1. Is Randall Cobb still with them, or is he's gone now? I don't even know. But even if he is, Randall Cobb's not the same player he once was. I feel like with Rodgers, Lazard will be somewhat better. But again, Mike Williams coming off of the ACL. And then of course, you got Breece Hall coming out of the backfield. So again, I think the Jets are fine. Could they use another weapon? Yeah. But I feel like for Aaron Rodgers' sake, you want to maybe you get another receiver in the second or third round. But with Aaron Rodgers, maybe offensive line is probably the better way to go. But we'll see. We'll see. Because, I mean, if you got, one of these linemen, these top linemen there, I mean, probably should take it. But, I mean, they did address the offensive line in free agency, so that might make them more inclined to say, you know what, we're going to add another playmaker. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but again, we'll find out on Thursday. We'll find out on Thursday. So, with that being said, we're going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, again, let me know what you guys think about the Zach Wilson stuff. What do you think the Jets will end up doing with him, as well as what do you think the Jets will do with their first pick? What would be the better thing for them to do? Take a playmaker or take a lineman? Because it's going to be one of those two things. Let me know in the comments. But when we come back, we'll talk about a couple things with the Chiefs, what they could do in the draft, but mainly the importance of Marquise Brown now. I mean, the move is even more important with the stuff going on with the Chiefs. So we'll get into that when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, can't believe we're already here, but again, that's how fast the shows go. We're going to talk about Marquise Brown. We'll talk about some comments made by the general manager of the Chiefs, Brett Veach, talking about the acquisition of Brown, his importance, as well as some things Andy Reid had to say as well regarding how the Chiefs will approach the draft. And this is what the general manager had to say. Like every year, whether it's free agency or the draft, if there's an opportunity to add a playmaker for Pat, we're always going to be looking for those options. Played it out, so to speak, at some other positions. I think we were lucky that Hollywood's situation played out the way it did. I think he's going to be a great one-year addition for us, and he's going to set himself up nicely moving forward. I think we're excited, and I like that. And like I said, every year is different and unique. I think with the resources we had available, we maximize what we can do this offseason. And, yeah, there's other stuff going on with some of their other receivers. Mainly Rashee Rice and his whole situation. Now, I think he was working out with Patrick Mahomes, despite everything going on. But we'll see how that situation ends up playing out. But yeah, I mean whatever ends up happening, if there's some kind of suspension or anything else, I mean that makes the acquisition of Marquise Brown more important. And again, unfortunate for the Chiefs if Rashee Rice isn't there, because Rashee Rice played well towards the end of the year, and he was a big factor for them. But now he's gone. Like I said, that just makes the Marquise Brown acquisition more important. And you're hoping Travis Kelce's healthy in 2024, because he was banged up last year, but really played well in the postseason, so it didn't even matter. But you want Kelce to be healthy. You got Marquise Brown. Other guys are gonna have to step up. You still got Justin Watson, and Kadarius Toney is somehow still on the Chiefs. They still believe in him. You still got Sky Moore, but yeah, the wide receiver group's still lacking. And then you got Isaiah Pacheco coming out of the backfield, who played well last season. But once again, wide receiver is a little bit of a problem for Kansas City, and they may be looking to add somebody else. So this is what Andy Reid had to say about how they're going to approach the draft. So, or just at least on the draft. So those are two positions that we are looking at, but I mean, Brett is looking at all of them. You're sitting at 32, so it's tough to tell you what's going to take place there. It's a great thing on one hand to be 32nd because you've done okay on the season, which, yeah, they're coming off of another Super Bowl championship before, but that's a long wait, and you better really stay true to the board, what's there, and take the best player you possibly can at that spot. So, I mean, they could also go defense too. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they take a receiver in the second round. I mean, who knows what they do with that pick. But, it could be. Well, this is what the other stuff that Veach had to say. It's one of those scenarios where there's a lot of positions that would make sense for us. And again, you start at the O-line, D-line, and receiver positions. It's a long season, and depth is super important to us. And also, guys, contracts do run out. Anytime you can get a player who can come in here and challenge for a starting position right away, I think you go in that direction. So we'll see what they end up doing. Or they take a receiver with that last pick. I mean, they brought back Chris Jones. So defensive line might not be what they end up doing with their first pick. But, again, who knows? And listen, the Chiefs, they're doing things right. I mean, look at what they've done the last couple of seasons now, winning back-to-back Super Bowls, looking to win now a third one, which is definitely very possible. And they have a great shot to do that, something that no NFL team has ever done. But, I mean, you look at their receiver group, the receiving core, they're gonna add someone through the draft. Or maybe they trade for one. Maybe they trade for Brandon Ayuk. Nah, that's not gonna happen. Well, I mean, it could, but I don't see that happening. But because there's a couple of receivers that could be traded. I mean, there's still receivers out there to sign. And again, like, there's not like a superstar out there. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. is out there, but he's not, the Odell from, his rookie season. They actually did have on NFL Network the other night. They had the Odell catch game on, and that was a great moment. But I feel like people tend to forget who ended up winning that game. Giants lost that game. Cowboys unfortunately won that game. I was very upset after that game because I thought the Giants, they played really well, and the Cowboys just ended up pulling it out. And I think Dez Bryant had like 3 touchdowns in that game. Let me ask you guys, if anyone wants to, if you want to comment, leave a comment. Which team do you think was better? Quick thing. The 2014 Cowboys team or the 2016 Cowboys team? With Dak and Zeke, or with Tony Romo, his last good season, and DeMarco Murray. Because that Cowboys team was good. That offense was good. It was really good. But yeah, so that was on the other night. But yeah, see how way off topic we got? Because I was talking about Odell being a free agent. Chiefs looking for a wide receiver. But yeah, that game was on. And, it just brought me back to, the memories started flooding in. I was in here when Odell made that catch in this room. And I hear my dad downstairs yelling, he caught that? It just was, well, he didn't say it like that, but, I can't repeat what he said specifically. But, yeah, it was crazy. But then the Giants ended up losing, and I was upset after that game. I was. Because, again, I thought the Giants played really well. They came up short. But yeah, Odell's out there. Again, we got off topic, but Odell's a free agent. Tyler Boyd. I know I keep mentioning Tyler. Tyler Boyd's eventually going to get signed. Somebody's got to sign him, right? I guess maybe. Yeah, it's. I mean, the guys that are remaining, it's probably going to be after the draft. Then you'll start seeing things pick up again, I would imagine. But the Chiefs are a team that needs receivers. They need help. So, there's guys out there, and again, this draft, there's a lot of receivers that they could go after. I mean, I really only focused on the top guys, but there's other receivers there. And again, they're a well-run organization that they'll figure it out. Again, I mean, some of the things that they've done really haven't panned out. I mean, you trade for Kadarius Toney and, had a great Super Bowl against the Eagles and made some plays, but it was rough in 2023. Sky Moore really hasn't panned out. Yeah, it just, but you know what? I talk about this, and again, they have still managed to win back-to-back Super Bowls. So they'll figure it out. And I think last year really showed you that despite their struggles, they could still go on and win a Super Bowl. Because I thought, this team's not winning the Super Bowl. But what they did, I compared to the 2018 Patriots, who oddly enough beat the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl and beat the Rams. Because the 2018 Patriots, like, you had Brady, who's getting older. I mean, again, look what he ended up doing with Tampa. But, like, they didn't surround Brady with the best, with a lot of, you had a declining Edelman, you had Gronk, who, again, still was producing, but not, like he was before that. It didn't matter. Those guys still ended up winning a Super Bowl that year. That I didn't think, I had the Chargers coming in with, Phillip Rivers and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Eckler, and it didn't matter. Well, Melvin Gordon when he was good. Patriots destroyed him. And then they beat Mahomes, and then they got to the Super Bowl. They played the Rams. They won that. Again, I'm trying to be careful with what I say with, Brady and Edelman and Gronk, because, they were getting older. But again, you saw when Brady stepped into Tampa with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown and Gronk and Fournette with that solid offensive line, looked like he could play, for another 5 years. And 2021 was good. And 2022 was not so good. And now he's open to coming back. But like I compare last year's Chiefs team to the 2018 Patriots. Because again, offensively, you had a Hall of Fame tight end. You had a Hall of Fame quarterback. The receiving core was not the best. Good running game. Good defense. And they still found a way. They both beat the number 1 seed on the road. And then they both ended up beating, the top team in the NFC West that season. In 2018, it was the Rams. And in 2023, it was the 49ers. Rams weren't the 1 seed, right? Yeah, the Rams weren't the 1 seed that year. But, it's similar. It was like that because you look at the weapons on offense. It's just, you got Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce, but you had Julian Edelman, who I mean was making every third down catch in that AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. But Edelman, we saw a couple years later, then he ended up getting hurt. Well, he was playing hurt, and he just couldn't do it anymore. But I that's what I compare last year's Chiefs team to is the Patriots. That Patriots team. And again, I'm not trying to knock anybody, but it's just, guys were getting older, but Edelman obviously he was done after 2020. I mean, Gronk played, in 2020 and 2021, took 2019 off and then joined up with Brady in Tampa. And they did well. They did good, winning the Super Bowl, and then probably could have won it the second year if, certain guys didn't get hurt, but that was not the case. But, the Chiefs now, back to them. We'll see what they end up doing with their first pick. Probably, I mean, they're probably going to draft a receiver. I feel like I've been saying that. The Jets, Jaguars, the Cowboys. Well, I know, not the Cowboys. Yeah, the Jaguars, the Jets, the Chiefs. Those are teams that could be looking to draft receivers. So, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. But, yeah, I went off on a couple of tangents today. But that's what happens. That's what happens. And, yeah, we basically reached the end of the show for today. Like I said, the draft is this week. So we'll definitely talk about that. And, of course, Friday we'll recap, the whole first night. You kind of have a feeling of what the first couple of picks are going to be. And then after that, it's kind of going to be a little bit of a mystery. And like I said, there's going to be trades. There is definitely going to be trades. You're going to see teams trading up and trading down. That's all like a guarantee. So, looking forward to it. Again, gives us something else to talk about because again, there's been days where it's kind of tough to, come up with things. But we're moving right along. We're almost in May, which is crazy. But that's how time flies. So yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out our other shows. Give them some love, as I've been saying, because we got other stuff going on in the sports world. So check all those shows out. And yeah, again, appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.